Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be back here with you and so glad you're back here with me. Today, I thought I would talk about blocking ourselves. I seem to be watching a lot of people block themselves and think that it's something else blocking them, including me, because I'm totally part of all the same issues. I mean, we all have all the same issues. That's what makes us human. If I can just remind us for a second that in the Spontaneous Brilliance Metaphorical Metaphysical Guide to Life, we are all in the paradigm that all the world's a stage. And so everything that works toward a successful performance on the stage does the same thing when that principle or that rule or that technique is applied to a successful performance on the great stage of life. And since we talk about improv and we're going to talk today about blocking, I'm going to review really quickly for you. And if you'd like a more in-depth review of any of this, just go back to episode 1. It's all back there. Or get the book. Spontaneous Brilliance, the book, actually goes into all of this in extreme detail. But right now, I'm just going to review couple of quick things for you, okay? In improv, as in life, you are only doing one of 3 things. In an improvisation, in any improvisation, you are only ever offering, making an offer, or you're accepting an offer, or you're blocking an offer. That's it. And since life is a 24/7 improv, then there are only 3 things you're ever doing in life. Any thought, word, or deed in life is only one of 3 things. It's either an offer, it's the accepting of an offer, or it's the blocking of an offer. And what we're going to talk about today is blocking ourselves. I'm going to just reestablish what the definition of blocking is. So, in improvisation, blocking is anything that is directly contradicting or resisting any offer. That it's anything that stops the action from developing. And in life, blocking directly contradicts or resists any offer or idea. It stops the situation from developing. It gives no validity or power or understanding or consideration to the offer, whatever the offer is. That's how blocking is defined. Okay, so here we are in the Spontaneous Brilliance podcast, and the subtitle to the book, Spontaneous Brilliance, is Unleash the Power of Your Unique Creative Genius, right? Because my fundamental premise is that everyone, you, me, everybody, is a unique creative genius with a passion and a purpose they came here to share. And I mean everyone, regardless of what our age, education, perceived abilities, or perceived disabilities might be. We each are unique creative geniuses. But we find that so freaking hard to buy into. Why is that? Why do we block that? It's easier for us to look at somebody else and assess their genius or how wonderful they are, how miraculous they are, how special they are, how great they are. But we think that there is something that is egocentric or egotistical about actually stopping to believe that we are a unique creative genius. I literally wrote the book on the subject, and I have problems identifying that and owning it. Being willing to say, this is my superpower, this is my genius, this is what I'm really good at, right? This is what I love to do, or this is what I think the solution is to this problem. We all have those challenges. We all have things that we do to block ourselves. When our spontaneous ideas come to us, we generally censor before we let it out, right? We censor first. We stop the idea, assess it, see how well it's going to be potentially accepted by everyone else. We see how our expectations and our preconceived notions fit with it. We check it out against all of our presets, and then we let it out of our mouth, maybe. Maybe. Or we put it into action in our lives, maybe. But it's important always to remember that the universe never blocks, right? That's a fundamental principle. You've heard me say it a billion times. The universe never blocks. And so much of what we perceive as obstacles or blocks in our life, and we know that obstacles are just inspiration, right? We embrace the obstacles. That's a fundamental principle as well, because it's a fundamental principle of acting, right? But when we see these things as obstacles in our life, when we see these things as like what we want to do is being blocked, tend to attribute that to the universe, the God of our understanding, the force, the consciousness, the creative force in the universe. We think it's blocking us. Now, that is a contradiction in terms. The creative force in the universe is blocking us in our creative process. That would tend to not even make sense when I say it. Usually, when we perceive the universe as blocking us, it's almost always us blocking ourselves. You know, Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, not just the parts where you're with other people, but even the part where you're by yourself, seemingly alone. Humans are in a constant state of interacting. We're interacting. We're in this continual, what I call this continual dance of offering, accepting, and blocking, right? And if we're not dancing with someone else, then we're dancing with ourselves in the offering, accepting, and blocking process. And in an improv, when you're on a stage, the audience only knows what is said and done by the performers. But in life, you're not only dealing with what is said and done by others and what is said and done by you, but you're also dealing with your own thoughts, what's happening inside you. And even when you are alone, you are still in an improv with yourself. You're still making a series of offers. You're still blocking and accepting those offers, hopefully accepting. You're still blocking those offers or accepting those offers as you choose. The problem is that most of the time when you are self-blocking, nobody in the whole world knows it, not even you. Usually it goes unnoticed because it's unconscious. But if it makes you feel any better, and sometimes this sort of thing makes me feel better, you're not alone. If you're unconsciously blocking like crazy, you're not alone. We all are. We all are blocking those spontaneous thoughts. We're blocking those divine inspirations. We're blocking all the time. Blocking is any time we say no to ourselves. Every time our mind or our spirit or our essence makes an offer, we are pretty likely to have a default block in there based on whatever preset gets triggered, right? And presets are preconceived notions and judgments and expectations and limiting beliefs, right? That's what I call presets. If we can manage to bypass that immediate no, then we have a chance to roll out that offer. We have a chance to turn our blocking of ourselves into accepting, into saying, yes, I hear that. I hear that thought inside my head. And, right, because that's how we keep ourselves practicing accepting and offering is by saying yes and, right? We're in this improvisational game with ourselves. We're saying, yes, I hear that thought. I notice that thought. I notice that idea. I notice that push from my soul, my higher self. my essential being wants to do something, I got all these reasons why I don't want to do it. The egoic self is right here going, yeah, but that might not be safe. That might not be happy. That might be hard. Or what if somebody doesn't like what I offer? What if somebody makes fun of me? What if somebody does this? What if somebody else does that? All the reasons why we don't want to do it and we just sort of block. It's always about fear. You are a unique creative genius and you have these brilliant ideas. Share them. I often tell people that about my own experience with fear, right? Because people have always told me that I look so fearless. I just sort of jump off the bridge and go do these things. And the reality of that is that I'm probably scared all the time. I would love to be this transformed human being that doesn't feel any fear, right? About these beautiful, wonderful offers that come to my mind, right? These creative ideas that I have. I think it would be festive to have no fear, no concern about the what ifs of if it doesn't work out. And just because I literally wrote the book on how not to do that doesn't mean I still don't have it going on. When people would say to me, "Oh, you're so fearless," I learned early on to say, no, actually, I'm scared all the time. I'm just more scared of not doing it than what might happen if I do it and fail. I really learned somewhere early on that I would rather blow up and fail at something than to get to the end of my life and have I wish I'd at least tried. Like that sounds really yucky to me. So that's one of the motivations to me that moves me past the fear, moves me through the fear, moves me past that inner critic and gets me to do things like create a podcast and not give in to the, well, who are you to create a podcast and who are you to write a book and what if they don't like it? What if nobody comes? What if nobody listens? So there's that element of blocking ourselves that we can become aware of, right? It's fear-based. We're doing it. We're in that narrative. And then we also tend to use obstacles or use tough things that are offers that might be an offer to make us stronger from the universe, or it might be an offer to make us stronger from our higher selves, or it might be somebody showing up as our sacred friend. Any of those things could be happening. We see those obstacles or challenges as a sign that we shouldn't do it. We like to say, the universe is giving me a sign, or it's God's will, or it's, whatever, those big, giant, blocky sounding limitations that seem to be coming from on high. But remember, and please never forget, the universe never blocks. The universe is just giving you everything you need, want, desire in any circumstance. The only being in existence on the great stage of life that blocks intentionally is the human being. We are the only ones that block intentionally. And so one of the ways that we block ourselves is that we put our focus on the problem. We put our focus on what's wrong. And when you are acting on a stage, one of the great fundamental rules, if you will, is you can't play a negative. You can't play what you don't want as a character, right? If you focus on what's wrong, or I used to have an acting teacher who would say, don't play the end of the play. If you know that the character's going to run into some really big problems or they're not going to succeed at what they want, that doesn't mean that they don't play 90% of the play as though they have that hope and that determination to win. We don't watch dramas about people that know they're going to fail and just spend the whole 2 hours of a movie getting ready to fail. Right? They are going to succeed, and if they do have failure, we watch them get back up. That's what the best part is watching them get back up and work through that and continue to offer. But if you place your attention on what's right, then you're looking at what is the greatest benefit of the character as an actor. What's the greatest benefit for the character? What does the character want that's going to pull them through this? So what do you want? In our paradigm, if you have fractures in a relationship or illness in the body, you can still find the love. You don't have to focus on and play the problem. You focus on the positive. You focus on the other side of the problem. How do you get to the other side? And so in blocking ourselves, we have to put our attention on what we do want. Just allow what we don't want. I think that's a thing that Abraham Hicks says. You know what you don't want, so now you know what you do want, right? So if we look at those obstacles, we look at those problems, we look at those things that we deem negative in our lives, although remember, in Hamlet, Mr. Shakespeare wrote, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? But okay, we're thinking it's bad, okay? So when we have that problem, if we allow that to simply be the contrast, simply be the thing that is showing us what we don't want, then our job as actors, players here on the great stage of life is to turn our focus toward what we do want and go there with gusto. And when we've got the fear, we just let that be an offer that is motivating us even further. We will always have people that will be wanting to share their blocks with us. We'll have people that are habitual blockers, that's where their comfort zone is. Probably won't work. Shouldn't try because it isn't going to, what if it doesn't happen? We all have habitual blockers in our lives, and they will tell you why you can't or shouldn't do something. Why your genius idea might be great, but maybe you should keep it to yourself. Or, maybe it's just meant for a smaller version of that, a safer version for that, right? But they'll tell you why they didn't succeed at something or why they wouldn't do it. They're attached to their limiting beliefs. They're most comfortable with their limiting beliefs, and they're super comfortable. They're comforted by us sharing them. They believe, habitual blockers believe that their limiting beliefs are universal, that whatever their negative presets taught them to believe or to fear that they could not likely be or do or have, that applies to everyone. They also tend to believe that life happens to us, not for us. So they feel as though the control of their lives is outside of them. And then they want to share that feeling with those people around them, right? They want that to be understood, because as soon as we encounter a habitual blocker, we are encountering somebody who is driven by, guided by fear. That's what they are doing. They are trying to stay away from anything that they think is dangerous or bad or hurtful or harmful or going to make them sad or going to make them scared or going to make them look less than in any way. And the interesting thing about habitual blockers is the more they love you, the more they will want you to do that too, because your failure is just as imminent as theirs in their paradigm. So if you're faced with a habitual blocker or a whole family of habitual blockers, as might be the case, don't take it personally. They are practicing this in every aspect of their lives, and they might mean it to be very protective of you. They have miles of reasons for not trying because they tried and, quote, failed. Habitual blockers will believe that anytime they tried and failed, it's because of something or someone that they can point to and they can blame as being responsible for their lack of success. Like habitual blockers see fault and blame and burden as interchangeable with responsibility. Remember, we put a hyphen in the middle of responsibility. It is our ability to respond. And so habitual blockers can cause us doubt in ourselves and our perceptions. They can instill fears in us that we didn't even know we had. They can take us out of the present moment and focus us on pain of the past or of an unknown future. And they reinforce the perspective that things happen to us, not for us. So habitual blockers, in trying to share their safety rules, they'll set us on a path of protecting ourselves from things that have not happened yet. You are a unique creative genius. We've just got societally a habitual block around the notion that everybody is brilliant. Even some of you listening to this might be wanting to just pat me on the head and go, that's really cute that you think that. That's really nice. That's great. But in reality, what she means is everybody should feel good about themselves. No, that's not. Well, I would love it if everybody felt good about themselves, but that's not what I'm saying. I am literally saying everyone has a unique brilliance, and we are societally locked into this limiting belief that that's not possible. And that is the thing that we have to recognize is just a habitual block. We tend to look for genius in certain categories, and we won't see it as whatever is coming at us from these beautiful, wonderful people in front of us. So this seems like a good time to bring up blocking versus boundaries. We have a lot of confusion around our personal boundaries and whether we are blocking someone else or blocking ourselves if we set up boundaries for what we want and don't want, like and don't like. But I've been really struck lately watching some beautiful people around me have no boundaries with what they allow other people to project onto them as what they should do, usually for these other people. I think that it also relates to those of us that are working every day trying to be in, this transformative space, and we're trying to grow and learn and evolve as human beings and be better and better versions of ourselves every day. And so somewhere it's very easy sometimes, I think, to get caught in a little dichotomy that doesn't quite make sense about, well, am I blocking if I say no to this person when they want me to do something? Or am I not being a good person if somebody says they need my help and I don't want to do it or I can't do it? Should I feel bad about that? Should I drop everything I'm doing and go do that? Well, I'm just going to say, we know in our heart of hearts, our higher self, we know what is ours to do. We know what is ours to be, do, and share. And you can feel it inside if it's not yours to do. But we get in a habit of letting other people tell us what would be the right thing for us to do, what they need us to do, how they need us to show up for them. And if we're in a relationship with that person, we will tend to say, okay, or maybe the person is a little not an accepting improvisational partner. They're just offering their butt off all the time. And so they're throwing lots of offers at you and you think, okay, well, there's 27 offers here. I need to take one. You may not be thinking of them as offers, but it's like they're telling you the things they need. They're telling you the things you should be doing. They're telling you the things they want you to do. And so you do them. And you feel bad if you don't do them. But boundaries are good. Boundaries are not blocking. Boundaries are ways that we employ self-care. There is a difference between self-blocking and self-care. If I say it that way, it doesn't sound hard to understand. Remember, I spoke about this before, but I'm gonna repeat this again, that my brilliant coach Layla Reyes taught me this one because I had a problem with always rescuing everybody and having no boundaries when it came to somebody needing me. Dun, da, da, I went sailing in there, right? So this is the process to take yourself through. When you feel the dun, da, da moment or the obligation moment, when you feel like you have to do this because they asked. When you feel any of those kinds of feelings, ask yourself, is this mine? And if the answer is yes, this is mine. This is something that I own in my life, right? This is mine to do. Then the next question you ask yourself is, then what's the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? And if you ask yourself the question, is this mine? And the answer is no. Then the next question you ask yourself is, then what's the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? Both questions, both answers get the same second question, okay? And a lot of times, even for me, it will be challenging to put the word myself in that sentence. It's easy for me to say, what's the most loving thing I can do right now? Because that lets me be focused on other people and not have a boundary for myself. But if I embrace that boundary and say, what's the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to go ahead and do what needs to be done because that's what you are inspired to do. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself right now is step away, walk away, say no. Without malice, you don't have to be rude about it, but you can say no. That is oftentimes one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves. And saying no is not necessarily blocking. One more thing I just want to bring up about blocking ourselves, and that is when we feel fear and we don't want to do something, and we are trying to hide from our own ideas, or we're trying to hide from doing that special thing that we have inside of us, and that divine inspiration is there, but we're ignoring it at a high rate of speed, right? When that is happening, we are usually looking for justification. Why, right? Why is a non-question except to give us justification. Remember, we've talked about that. So we're looking for why we shouldn't do it. And so when you're an actor and you're looking for the reason that your character is behaving in a certain way, the reason that your character is blocking certain things or not dealing well with certain obstacles that come up in their way, is you look into the text and you look for the past. You look for every clue to what led up to this moment that got them that way so you can understand where they're coming from. You have to write the backstory for the character for everything that's not in the text. As actors, we will go back, and it's literally part of our job to use our imagination to write that backstory to get us up to this moment. And when we write that backstory, it's all in alignment with the part of the play the part of the story that is the play or is the screenplay. But we fill in the blanks. Everything that's missing, we fill it in. And we look to the past of the character, whatever's missing, in order to justify or explain where we want to go, what we want to do, what we want to believe. We make it up, okay? As people, we do the same thing. We look to our past for justification. And believe me, You guys, we all think we remember stuff with great detail, and some of us have terrific memories. I have a terrific memory for conversations, like I can repeat them verbatim, but that doesn't mean that I remember all aspects of that. Every human being on the planet, we have memory, and we have memory that is specific, and where there are blanks, we fill it in because we need a story that justifies what we want to be and do right now. And so we go back and look into our past. We look for the explanation of our fears. We even go into long, huge therapy sessions looking to explore and investigate and understand what the narrative is that can make us make sense of now. And when we let that rule now, when we let that story rule now and tell us why we can't be or do something in the future, that's when we're blocking ourselves. I'm not suggesting that there's no value in looking at the past, but when you're using the past as an excuse, as a reason to not show up fully as what you're inspired to be, then that's something you want to check on. Write the story differently. See the situation that confounded you from a different perspective. See it from the perspective of it was offered to you into your life in order to help you learn or grow in some way. And if you can look at it that way, look at it as an offer. Whatever that situation was that was challenging, it was an offer. So how can I respond to it differently now that I'm in a completely different space and time? We talked about time in the past is only a thought. So change the thought, change the limit, change the block that comes from that past perspective, because the future is yours to write as you choose. Your life, the way you show up, your being is yours to offer as you choose. This is a story of your own writing. So write the blocks out of your story. Let them go, okay? You are here to be, do, and share all the beautiful, wondrous things that are you. So let's do that together. Stop looking for the blocks. Stop looking for the justification. Ask yourself, what's the most loving thing I can do for myself in every moment? And do that. Make that offer, okay? And please always remember and never forget, when in doubt, offer, and if in doubt, you're probably blocking. Okay. I love you all very much. Very glad we were here today to talk about this. Let's all go out and offer, and accept, and not block. Okay? No blocking ourselves today. All right. Send me a message and let me know how you're doing with that. All right? The Spontaneous Brilliance podcast is brought to you by Miracle Communications Group. Our producer is Michelle Oneida. Sound engineer is Corey Michaels at Corey Michaels Productions. Music is composed by Rex Miller. And I'm your host, Sandra Kavanaugh. You can learn more about me and all things Spontaneous Brilliance at sandrakavanaugh.com or spontaneousbrilliance.com. And please join the conversation here at the Spontaneous Brilliance podcast by emailing us at podcast@spontaneousbrilliance.com. And have a beautiful, glorious, blessing-filled day.